The scripture this morning is taken from the 12th chapter of Genesis. The 12th chapter of Genesis, and we're going to read the first 9 verses. The first 9 verses of Genesis 12. This is the story of the calling of Abraham and Sarah. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abram left as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Morah at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on towards the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. May the Lord add his blessing to this reading from his word. Well, as I indicated, I'm not going to preach a long message this morning, but it is an important one because it deals with the journey that you and I as believers are on. And I want to suggest to you this morning that this journey that we are on in many ways is very similar to the journey that Abraham and Sarah took together. One of the things I've discovered in my life is that every denomination has its strengths and its weaknesses. And one of the strengths of the Baptist denomination is that we've been reminded of the importance of every individual making a personal commitment to Jesus Christ. Some denominations have said, well, as soon as a child is born, they're automatically part of the Christian family. And so they have confirmation. You're confirming the decision that others have made for you. And Baptists have tried to correct this by saying, no, every individual has to make a decision for themselves as to whether they are going to follow Jesus Christ or not. No one can make this decision for them. And that's been our strength. But there's a weakness that comes along with that as well. And the weakness is that somehow we've conveyed the impression to many people that once you've made that decision, once you've said that prayer, once you've crossed that line, that your work is over. I'm saved now. I'm a believer now. I've said the prayer. I've made the decision. My work is done. And that's a terrible point to be at, because you're making the end of the journey what is supposed to be the beginning of the journey. It'd be like if a baby was born, and as he came out of his mother's womb, he said, "Oh my gosh, that was exhausting. I never want to go through anything like that again. But at least it's done. I'm through. I don't have anything else to do now." What would you say to that baby? You'd say, no. This is just the beginning of your journey. You have a whole lifetime of experiences to go through before your journey is done. And this is what it's like in the Christian life. When you committed your life to Christ, it was just the first step of a long journey. And that journey of faith, I want to suggest to you, is very similar to the journey that Abraham and Sarah followed under the direction and the lordship of God. And there's several points here, several points of comparison or analogies I want to draw for you. First of all is the point that I mentioned during the children's story. Abraham's journey was first and foremost a journey of faith. It was a journey of faith. Notice in chapter 12, verse 1, the story begins this way. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you, the land of Canaan." Hold it now. I added that last part there, the land of Canaan. That's not what the first verse says. God doesn't say, go to the land of Canaan. What does he say? He says, first, leave your country. So the place where you've grown up in, I want you to leave. Leave your people, so those around you who you've known, your friends, your associates, the people you're comfortable with, and your father's household, in other words, your whole family. Everything that is part of your comfort zone. Everything that gives you a sense of safety and security, God says to him, I want you to leave. And he says, go to the land I will show you. He doesn't tell him where he's going to go. He has to leave everything that's familiar and comfortable to him, that's secure for him. But then he has to go into an unknown land that God does not make known to him at that point. He does later on. And isn't that how the Christian life is? I had no idea when I committed my life to Jesus Christ where he was going to lead. I had no idea that the journey was going to take me through Chicago and Louisville, Kentucky, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I had no idea I was going to marry a Mexican American from Houston, Texas. I had no idea we were going to have 2 children together. And I have no idea where the journey is going to take me. Where will I be 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Will I be home or will I still be journeying? I don't know. And neither do you. And so that journey that we take is a journey from the familiar, from the routine, from the comfortable, but it's to a location that we have no idea where it's going to end. The writer to the Hebrews makes this point known. In Hebrews chapter 11, he talks about the great heroes of the faith, and he mentions Abraham. And he says in verse 8, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. And he's held up as a great hero of the faith because he walked by faith. And that, my friends, is what God wants you to do. It's what he wants me to do. To walk by faith. Second, the journey that Abraham and Sarah took together was a journey that was accomplished in stages. It was accomplished in stages. They didn't get to Canaan all at once. If you look at the story of Abraham from Genesis 12 until Genesis 25 where he dies, God sends him all over the place, different places. He goes to Egypt, he goes to Canaan, he goes to different areas. But each step of the way, God told him what he wanted him to do next. But again, it took faith because he never saw the whole picture. He never knew what each step was going to be until they were upon it. And incidentally, make note of the fact that Abraham was 75 years old when he started this journey. 75. Most people at 75 are thinking about how they can end their journey. Abraham was just beginning. It's never too late to start walking the Christian life, to start walking the Christian journey. It's never too late to become a follower of Jesus Christ. If you're older and you've never made that decision, today is the day to do it. One of my favorite stories, and I'm mentioning this today because it's warm in here, is the story by Charles Dickens called A Christmas Carol. You feel a little cooler now? The story of Scrooge. And remember when those three spirits appeared to him. And what does he say? He says, look, please, please, find a younger, more promising project to work upon. I'm too old. I'm too set in my ways. It's too late for me. Find someone else. But the three spirits continued to work on him, and his life was transformed. It's never too late to have your life transformed by Jesus Christ. Don't ever let your age hold you back from this journey. So it was a journey accomplished in stages, and it was a journey on which Abraham started late in life. Third thing, it was a journey on which God accompanied them. I talked about that in the children's story as well. We're still blindfolded. We still don't know where we're going to end up, but just like Ben and Charlie took Josie's hand, God takes the hand of the believer and he leads them on that journey. Most of you here today know the Great Commission because we've mentioned that a lot. When Jesus gave his final marching orders to the disciples, he said, go into all the world. Remember how he ends that commission? He said, lo, I am with you always to the very end of the age. We don't know where the journey's going to go, but we do know the one who's with us. And this is a neat one. The journey that Abraham and Sarah started together was a journey in which from time to time God did special things. Remember the events around Isaac's birth, around Abraham offering up Isaac as a sacrifice, even some negative things like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. There were times in Abraham's life when God intervened in a very special, powerful, unmistakable way. And that's what he does with you and with me. It doesn't happen all the time. I'll get to that in a minute. It doesn't happen all the time. But each of you who's a believer here today, can you think back to times when God appeared so close to you, so real to you, when he intervened in your life in a powerful way? Those are memories that last a lifetime. And Abraham had those moments. And you can be sure that he never forgot the day that God called him on the journey. He never forgot the day he offered up Isaac. He never forgot the day he was visited by those three visitors, God and two angels, and many other experiences where God intervened. Those are probably the events that kept him going through the difficult times, and he offers the same thing to us. So their journey and ours was a time which from time to time God did special things. But to balance that, their journey was also one in which Abraham and Sarah sometimes faltered. Do you remember? You know, it's easy to look at Abraham's life and only see the great times, the times when Abraham showed remarkable faith. It's easy to focus on that. and just think that Abraham went from victory to victory to victory. It didn't go like that. There were times when Abraham fell on his face, when he made bad decisions. To give you just one example, think about when he and his wife went into Egypt. And Sarah was apparently a very beautiful woman, and Abraham was concerned that if the Egyptians saw this beautiful woman and learned that he was her husband, that they would kill him in order to get her. And so he told Sarah to tell everyone that she was his sister. And of course, this brought judgment on Egypt. And when the king found out that what he had done, what does he say to Abraham? He says, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should not be done." And that's just one example. Abraham was not walking in faith there. He was not doing something that pleased God. He faltered. And you and I, on our journey, are going to falter too. There are going to be times that we slip, where we show a lack of faith, that we backslide. But the journey continues. The journey continues. We all have those moments. Two more things I want to mention, then I'm going to be done. Next is that the journey of Abraham and Sarah, and this is an important one, was a journey of gratitude and worship. In the passage I read this morning from Genesis 12, there's a couple of points that are really easy to skip over. I want to read them to you again. It starts at verse 6. It says, "Abraham traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Morah at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, 'To your offspring I will give this land.' So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on towards the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord." Now this is so cool because do you see what Abraham is doing there? Every time that God does something special in his life, he builds an altar. Now, why does he do that? God appears to him. He builds an altar. God speaks to him. He builds an altar. God intervenes in his life. He builds an altar. Why does he do that? He does it for three reasons. Number one, it's a witness to others of what God has done in his life. Number two, it's an act of worship. It's a thanksgiving offering to God. And number three, it is a way of reminding himself of what God has done. And my question for you this morning is this: are you building altars in your life? When God moves in your life in a powerful, unmistakable way, are you doing something to memorialize that? It could be as simple as writing in your diary. It could be purchasing something that acts as a symbol of it. But how do you think Abraham felt when he was going through those low points in his life? And God did not seem close, when God did not seem nearby, when he could not hear God's voice, and he passed one of these altars. Imagine how encouraging that would be. All of a sudden, into his mind, the whole memory of what God had done for him would come flooding back. And imagine the strength that he would receive from doing that. You and I need these types of altars in our lives, whatever they are. We need those altars to remind ourselves of God's faithfulness, because there will be times in your journey that you go simply by faith and you're holding on by the skin of your teeth. And it's those memories, it's those altars that will sustain you through those difficult times. And finally, my last point, and this is one that you've probably guessed already. Abraham's journey took a lifetime. It took a lifetime. In Hebrews 11, when it talks about the great heroes of the faith, it mentions Abraham and several others, and in verse 13 it says, all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. You and I are never going to finish this journey this side of eternity. It's a journey that we have to make for the long haul. It's often been said the Christian life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. There'll be highs, there'll be lows, there'll be times when the sun is shining down upon you, there'll be times when you're in the midst of a whirlwind. But through good times and bad, we are called to persevere. That's what Paul was getting at when he wrote to Timothy and he said, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. The Christian journey that we are on this morning is a journey lived by faith. It's a journey where sometimes we feel God's presence and sometimes we feel nothing. It's a journey in which sometimes we're going strong, and it's a journey in which we're crawling along as though we're walking through a desert. It's a journey of worship and gratitude, a journey where we set up altars to remind ourselves of what God has done. But every step of the way, God walks with us. And that is what makes it all worthwhile.